So we left off on creating this fender. So we started with this using a cube in the attribute editor, then we box modeled this. And now I'm going to show you some ways to start to utilize some other tools. So one of the things you can do is by selecting, in order to select everything on an edge loop, if I want to select all these edges directly in a row, if I double click on it, I'll highlight that entire edge loop. Same thing on this one, and it'll stop at a point where it doesn't continuously flow with the same type of edge looping flow. So it stops at this square here. So in order to get the bottom, you'd have to do like so. And then to add to your selection, hold Shift, and to subtract from your selection, also hold Shift and select over something already highlighted or selected. So what I'm going to do first is show you how to sort of smooth this out. And either way, it's always really kind of the same, but Maya has this cool way to smooth out hard edges. So if I hold right click and I go to edge, and I click one and I hold Shift and I double click the next one, it's going to select all these edges. And now I'm going to hold Shift and right click and go soften edge. And now when I look at it, it's not as that hard edged group there. Now it's much softer looking. So now from that point, what I'm going to do is I want to show you another cool tool, the multi-cut tool. I can select here, and I can click on an edge and I can drag it to overt, and I can start to do custom cuts and things like that. However, I don't want to do it that way just now. For the time being, that's one way you can use that tool. But another way is, a great way is to hold Control, and it'll go directly around an entire edge loop for you. And now I'm going to click once, and now you'll see that that showed up. And I'm going more or less directly in the center. And then the other way I want to make sure I get one going down this way as well. And I'm going to show you a different way for that. Sometimes this works really well, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to show you both ways. So you can go that way to create an entire edge loop, or click and hold Shift and double click, and we're going to go this way around it, and we're going to hold Shift and right click, add divisions to faces, and hit the little settings box. Shift, right click, and now change this to linearly. And this is always guess and check here. If I'm going to go 1, let's see, and hit apply, and it worked. So you'll see that it created an edge loop directly down the center. If in the U direction didn't work, switch to the V, and you'll notice now that I have a really nice, clean, evenly spaced edge loop going down directly down the center. Now another thing I want to show you how to do is, I've just showed you two ways to create edge loops and geometry. Another thing I want to do is show you how to combine objects and merge vertices. And in order to do this, I'm going to start with I want to show you something. I'm going to show you what I'm about to do. I'm going to cut into this region here. And how I'm going to do that is not just by trying to match my reference by moving around vertices and extruding inwards and things like that. It is possible to do it that way. It just doesn't turn out as nice. So I'm going to show you this other way to model using multiple objects in order to get the shapes that you need. So I'm going to start with a polysphere, and I'm going to move it out into space so I can see it. And I'm going to go to Shading, Wireframe on Shaded, so I can see my wireframe. And on my polysphere, I'm going to change this to 8 and 8 and hit return. And now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to rotate this at 90 degrees, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to snap it directly to this point, and I'm going to scale it down. Okay, so now you can see actually that I've got a lot of shapes going in here. So the other thing now I want to do is I want to take this shape. I'm going to go to my face mode. I'm going to select these faces, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete them. And now on my other shape, I'm going to delete half of it. And now from this point, you'll notice that the inside of it's black. Now what that means is it's telling you, it won't allow you to select it either. It's telling you that the normals are reversed. So I'm going to show you this thing, and this is just to show you what it's how it's actually reading the geometry, because it can only read the face or mesh on one side. And I'm going to turn this back face culling on, and I'm going to turn off wireframe on shaded, and you'll see the normals are the faces that were entirely black are actually see-through. So if we were to import this into other software, like a game engine, depending on, you know, a couple things between the softwares, it won't read correctly. So make sure, so make sure that you are aware of that. So at this point, I want to do what is called under the modeling tab, mesh display and reverse. And now I actually have it shaped the right way. And now the other thing I want to do is I'm going to go to my edge mode. I'm going to extrude out, press R, and now I'm going to turn also back my shading wireframe on shaded. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my vertex mode, and I'm going to snap these into place. Holding V with the move tool, I can snap vertices to one another. In this case, it's going to be directly to where I added all that extra geometry. And now that I've got that shape in, I'm going to select this shape and shift select this shape and do a combine. And from here, the last thing I got to do is I'm going to press 3 to show you. It's not doing it entirely too well, but here, if I move this out, you'll see that they're not actually physically combined in this virtual space. So what I need to do is go to vertex mode, hover over both of these, hold shift, right click, merge vertices, and merge vertices, and do that for each one. And I'll show you in a second. Once you do this, I just hovered, clicked, and dragged and did that to each one, and I press 3. And now, if I do that same thing with all those same faces selected, you'll notice it's all combined because it's actually one object now. So that's really good. Now another cool, neat little trick is I'm going to select this object, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go hold right click and go to edge. I'm going to double click this edge, and I'm going to hold shift and right click and go bevel edge. And I'm going to go 2 segments, and what this does is you'll see that it makes this a bit more hardened around that shape. And if I go into one mode, you'll see it adds an extra couple edge loops, and that's just to soften it out a little bit. As far as the hard edges, but if you go into smooth mode, you'll notice it gives it a more crisp roundness to it, a more sharper edge, which is what we really want, because at the end of this, we're going to smooth it out just to get it looking correct. So from there, I can do one more thing, create a sphere, and I'm going to rotate it again at 90, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to move it to a spot where I think it looks pretty cool. So something like that. And now I've got that little headlight that I was going to do. A couple other things. Multi-cut tool. One last thing is I'll save it for the next video. I'll do it right now. What we can do here is we can, I'm going to start by adding a color to this. I'm just going to add a material. I'm going to hold right click. I'm going to do assign new material. In this case, I'll do just a blend, and you'll notice all of this extra stuff to get that you notice in here. It's all in your channel box as well. So actually, once you get up to that point and you assign that blend, you notice all this stuff, all this information is stored inside this file. And it can actually take up memory, and it can also cause crashing. It can slow down the system, and as you continue to work on it without ever kind of clearing out that information. So you notice it's like 100 different things we've done, or I've done here. So I'm going to do a really quick little trick, and I'm going to do Edit, Delete All by Type, and I'm going to go to History. And now I've got rid of all that information. I cleared out my channel box as far as the inputs go, and it's really awesome. So from here, under Blend 1, I can play around with all these different settings, but I'm just going to change this color right now, and I'm going to change it to red. And now I've got my red blend car started. I can do the same thing here on this part. Hold right click, assign existing material, blend, and now I've got the start of this red car. I can hold shift and right click and go to soften edge, and you'll notice it starts to look a little bit softer. And this is where we're up to right now. I'll show you one more trick here. Is I'll click on this sphere, and I'll hold right click, and I'll assign one more new material, and I'm going to assign a blend again. I'm going to change the color to a stereotypical sort of color, like light or something. Maybe I'll go yellow. Yeah, that'll be fine. Anyway, so I'll make it a little bit lighter in color, and I just clicked and dragged on here. And what else I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to go to special effects, and I'm going to do a glow intensity of like 0.25. And then I'm also going to turn down or turn up the transparency to give it more of a about 50% see-through look to it. And I'm going to turn up the ambience. I will probably create another video just on this because I think it might be a little bit too much. But just in case we have enough time, I would like to include it in this, but I might not be able to. And I'll up the ambience. I'm going to start at like 50%. And that's about it for now. I will go ahead and go back and change, or I'll go back and create a separate video on just how to do that material thing. But just in case for now, in case anyone gets up to that point, you can go ahead and mess around with that and have some fun with that. As far as that goes, that's all we got for today. And thanks for watching.